All right. So the first step in understanding people and preparing yourself as a copywriter to help people is you have to pick who you're reaching out to and who you're helping in the first place. We're going to be talking about target markets and what's called an avatar. Now, these are the people you're going to be writing to. I have a saying that I like to repeat, and it's whoever impacts the reader at the deepest level wins. Of course, that's me. I came up with that saying, but it's true. In the market out there in the world, whoever can impact, whoever can connect or persuade a person the deepest out of anyone in the world, that's the person who wins their trust, who wins their business, who they'll pay for their products and services. So specificity gives you power. If you try and help everyone or sell a product to everyone in the entire world, you'll end up helping no one. But if you're able to focus your efforts and communication on a defined group of people, you can impact them significantly on a significantly higher level, right? Now, when you're sitting down to figure this out, your target market, that's the defined group of people who will get the most out of your product or service. If you focus on them and their specific problems, their dreams and roadblocks, you can communicate in a way that allows you to impact them on a deeper level than anyone else in the market, right? So when you're sitting down to write copy for a specific product, the first step is to sit down and ask yourself, who's the ideal target market for this product? Who is going to be the person who's going to get the most out of this product or service? Once you've got that figured out, then you're going to use the following trick to make sure you write in a way that resonates deeply with them. And you do that by creating what's called an avatar. Now, an avatar is a single person that embodies the characteristics of your target market. They're the person you picture in your mind, the single person you picture in your mind as you write. And I like to imagine that they're like sitting in front of me and I'm speaking only and directly to them through the words that I'm writing. So for example, let's run through this process. Let's say that the target market for the copywriting campus is 19 to 25-year-old men who are hungry to get wealthy and live free from the matrix. That's a really basic level. I'd get a little more to define my target market, but let's say that's the target market, right? Let's say. Now, if I want to create an avatar to help me imagine this target market, here's what that might look like in this example. So we'd create someone, I'd call him Steve. I'd say Steve is a 20-year-old young man living in Dallas, Texas. He's set to go back to college later this year, but he's dreading it. Right now, he lives with his parents, binge watches tape videos, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd go into more and more detail, right? You could even pick a picture to help you picture this person, right? Like a literal picture. I went and found this on pexels.com. It's just some website where you can get stock imagery. And this is who I might imagine in my mind when I think of Steve, right? So now if I were to sit down and write copy to persuade people to join the copywriting campus, or if I was, let's say, putting together a set of slides for new copywriting students, I could imagine Steve and address all of my words to him and everything that I say as if he's sitting across from me right now and I was talking with him. Now, what that does is that gives my writing a personal edge. When I can imagine a specific person, it's easier for me to communicate in a way that feels natural and connects with that kind of person on a deeper level, right? So it resonates well with Steve. If someone comes along that's the exact carbon copy of my avatar, resonates perfect with him. Plus, almost everyone else inside that kind of larger target market, it also resonates really closely with them because Steve is an embodiment of those people, right? The target market is the kind of the wider group of people that is a good fit for your product. And Steve, or your avatar, is the one specific version of like the embodiment of that. It's a single instance. It's one person. He may or may not be real, but he's a tool I use to think clearly about him and his life. And that specificity gives me power. It gives my brain enough reality to latch onto that it can come up with the rest of the information I need to know. So what do you need to include when you're creating an avatar? You need to understand, at a bare minimum, you need the name, age, and a face is helpful, right? That level of detail makes it easier for you to imagine them as a real person, individual person. It's really helpful. And then you can kind of ask your questions. Well, how would Steve think about this? Or what would Steve say that? And it's funny, you can ask your brain questions and your brain can give you answers, but it's a lot easier when you have a name, their age, and their face, right? And then you're also going to want their background and a mini life history. You don't need to go crazy overboard. Like, you don't need every single thing that's ever happened in their entire life. Like, I don't need to know what January 23rd was like when they were in third grade. You don't need to know that, right? But you need to understand the general context of their life, their previous experiences, what has happened to them up to now. You don't have to be terribly detailed, but you need to have a general feel for what that's like. The other thing that's really helpful is if you can come up with a day in the life. If you get a rough idea or an image or a movie in your brain of what like a day in that life of that avatar is like, he wakes up here, he gets up, he moves around, he does this, he does that. goes here, he dreads looking at that, he's excited for this, he sits there, he watches this video. If you can create a rough day in the life, that gives you a lot of rich context to draw from when you're working with him to help him change. The other thing you need to realize, you need to pay attention to, is you need to see if you can identify what are his values. Like, what do they believe in is most important? What do they believe in? What do they believe is most important? What do they despise? It's extremely important. Their value system is going to be informative when you're speaking to them. You need to understand it so you don't violate it when you speak with them. And instead you can go, either you can shift the things to be shifted, or at the very least you can go with the current of his current value system and direct him using that information. So it's important you understand their values, right? The other thing you need to understand is what outside forces are acting on his life. So most people have, in many cases, mistaken belief that outside forces control their lives, right? School, parents, other family members, religion, blah, blah, blah. All these other things control or influence their life. Now, you need to understand if your avatar has placed undue power on these outside sources, because that's going to be important. You can either use them as a source of blame, or as something, it's a fact you're going to need to adjust. If they really, really value the opinion of their parents, you might be able to change the way that their parents perceive them and use that as an indicator, or a sort of a carrot that you dangle in front of them. Hey, do this and your parents will be so proud. Rough example, but you need to understand the outside forces. That's an important part of like the terrain of that person, right? So these are 5 things. There's a lot more you can include. But this is just sort of a general idea, some things you want to look for when you're creating an avatar. Now, normally, if you're sitting down to do this for an established product, you'll be looking at the person's website, their social media, their webpage, the product page for the product you're trying to help them with. And usually you can get enough information from a product page. You can tell kind of by the context clues who they're talking to, kind of, you can get most of the information for who their target market is at least, right? And then kind of based on that, those context clues, and even if you have to make your best guess about some of those things, you can create an avatar from that. And again, you might have to kind of guess what their values are, or maybe what a day in their life is like. You're gonna have to imagine some of this, but the power comes from getting specific here. If you get specific and you make this avatar into a real fleshed out person in your brain, it gives you an ability to write on a deeper, more personal level. So you're going to get what information you can from your research, and then you have to make your best guess about the rest. But it's less about being right and more about being specific and being real in your own brain. So if you're working with an established client, instead of like completely inventing the avatar, just like pulling them out of thin air, you're going to instead sit down with your client and identify their most loyal, high-paying customers. And basically, you're just going to clone them. They will become your avatar. So when you sit down to write, you'll just think, oh, this guy's a really great client. Tim has experienced all these benefits. I'm going to write to Tim, but I'm going to write to Tim, basically the version of Tim that existed before he started using this product or service. So that's the avatar you can even create. Having an existing client makes it a lot easier to sort of supercharge or speed up this process. So defining the target market, figuring out who are the ideal customers for this product, who is going to get the most benefit out of this, who's going to pay the most, who's going to be the best ideal customer for this product. That's step number 1. It's extremely important. And then taking that and synthesizing out and creating one single avatar that you can use in your brain, a specific single embodiment of that target market to give your brain the specificity it needs. If you do that, it will allow you to focus on them, and it will give your writing the power of specificity and allow you to impact them on a deeper level and win in a marketplace. This is one of the things that will give you, this is one of the things that separates good copywriters from bad copywriters. Good copywriters and excellent world-class copywriters are all really good at defining and speaking to one specific avatar when they write. It's what gives them an edge over the competition. It gives them an ability to influence people on a deeper level. This is an extremely important step. When you're setting out to decide, to help someone sell a product or to just help people in general, you need to first define who you're going to help. And that's how you do it with this target market and the avatar.